Hey everyone, it's Dr. Aljoe here, Dig Deep Conversations with Christian Leaders. And in this episode, we are talking with Christian educators. This is a place that I hold. Hi, Tiff, how are you? This is a place that I hold near and dear to my heart because I am, in fact, an educator. I have an EDD in educational leadership. I currently work in higher education. I've been working in higher ed for a number of years. I love teaching in the classroom. I love administrative work. Most importantly, I love just being there for my students. I often say that what inspires me is being able to be the person for my students that I needed when I was an undergrad. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hi, Danielle. Hey, Christopher, who's watching from YouTube. Marlon David Bush is here. How are you, Marlon? Thanks so much for tuning in. Our guests are in the background for this episode. We're starting to have some good conversations, so I know tonight is going to be great. Listen, before we get into that, if you are watching this for the very first time or listening for the very first time, I am Dr. Aljoe, author, leader, mentor, and change agent. I am so excited to welcome you here to Dig Deep Conversations with Christian Leaders. I have quite a few different things coming up for the ministry. Yes, Justine, I did forget his extra middle name, Marlon Michael David Bush, whatever it is that my mom calls him. In any case, I have a couple of different things coming up for the ministry that I want to make sure that you all are a part of. The first, and what I think is probably the most exciting, is building an effective ministry. That's coming out on October 10th. We're starting October 10th, October 17th, and October 24th. Listen, if you are a Christian leader in your church, a department leader, a pastor, a district missionary, a bishop, whatever the case may be, you need to be in these workshops. And I'm going to tell you why. Because strategic planning is what I do. I do this for work. I've been able to get multi-million-dollar, thousands of dollar grants for institutions. And I want to be able to help ministries do that as well. And a big part of doing that is assessment and strategic planning. And I don't think that we do that enough in the church. So come to the workshops October 10th, October 17th, and October 24th. I'm going to post my website link at the bottom here. You can check out my website. It's Building an Effective Ministry. You can sign up, and guess what? I cannot even believe I'm sharing this. It is only $25. I know, right? $25. That's it. $25. It's 3 sessions for an hour with me, one-on-one time. And each and every one of you will walk away with your own strategic plan for your ministry, your own action plan, an assessment plan for all of your ministry. So make sure that you check out juriacialjo.org. Go and sign up. Please hurry up. Space is very limited and seats are running out. So make sure that you go and sign up for that. Sign up your pastor, sign up your first lady, your women's department leader, men's department leader, auxiliary leaders, all of that good stuff. You need to make sure that you are a part of that. All right, let's get into our conversation for this evening. I'm going to have our guests come on the screen. I'm so excited to welcome them and thrilled that they said yes to the call when I sent out a message. There you are. Hello, 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 Marissa and Jared. How are you all?
Hi, everyone.
What's going on? What's going on? Dr. Aljoe, so glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Likewise. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell my Pastor Joel is watching. Pastor Joel, what's going on? At Rehoboth Family Life Church of God in Christ in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Stop by and worship with us. All right, quick plug. All right, here we go. Justine is here. Thank you so much, Justine. She is my tech team helping out in the back with Zuko, our cat. Yes, #bars. Okay, so happy to have you all here and so glad that you all said yes. A lot of times what people don't know is the topics that I do is topics that God really places on my heart, and then he places and gives me people to reach out to. So I know that this is going to be an amazing conversation, and I'm really ready to get started. So are you all ready to get this conversation going?
Yes.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yay. All right, so we're going to start right at the top. What are some challenges educators are facing today, and how can we address those challenges? So future Dr. Davis, I'm going to start with you.
So some challenges educators are facing today. First of all, I guess it would be just cool to kind of state what I do. And
Oh, I'm
statewide.
sorry.
It's
Yes.
incredible to talk about this.
Yes, please introduce yourselves. Let's back up before you answer the question. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Cool. So, Jared Davis. I am a career-long educator. I started out in the classroom here in Houston, Texas, where I reside. Started out in the classroom, moved into a district level leadership position in another district in the city of Houston. I was formerly the director of community schools or wraparound services for the Houston Independent School District. And now I serve as an education consultant, and I have the opportunity to work with schools and school systems all across this country. I think it's also appropriate to share that I am the executive pastor of the New Life Tabernacle Church of God in Christ here in Houston, Texas, where my pastor is the superintendent, Carl Anthony Davis. So ministry, education, those are the two areas that I'm passionate about. Those are the areas that run in my family. So again, glad to be here with you all this evening.
I love it. Thank you so, so much. And Marissa, let's hear from you. Just tell the people who you are and what you do.
So I am Marissa. I am a middle school math teacher. Did not go to school originally to become a teacher, but here I am today, 7 years in. I started out as an aide. I went through the alternate route program here in Jersey, and I've been teaching ever since. So that is what I do. I have done several grades. I've even done a few grades on the elementary level. I started out with third, realized ASAP elementary wasn't for me at all. So I did fifth grade 3 years, did sixth grade 2 years. I did third for 2 years as well. So 2 or 3 years, did fourth for a year. So now I'm in seventh. My first group of kids are actually now freshmen in high school now. So it's just a joy to see the progress of the kids you first started out with. Those group of kids, I actually had them for 3 years. I had them for third grade, fifth grade, and sixth grade. So they loop me with them. So that is me. I am in the classroom.
I love it. I love how, 'cause I have a similar story where I didn't start out wanting to work in education or higher education at all. And my Aunt Joyce would always be like, you should be a teacher. You should be a teacher. And I'm like, nah, I'm trying to make this money. Like, I'm not trying to be no teacher. No, 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 no. And then, lo and behold, now I work in education. And I love what I do, and I'm very passionate about it. I get to teach part-time. So as an administrator, I don't really get to work as closely with students. I do more policies and procedures, that type of thing. But being in the classroom part-time does allow me to get that face-to-face time with my students at least once a semester. And I tell people all the time, it just really keeps me grounded and reminds me why I'm doing the work and why I'm pushing so hard. So yeah, I love it. All right, so we're gonna get into the questions for real. Thank you for bringing me back so I could introduce y'all so people know who you are tonight.
You're
So
good.
we're gonna start with Jared. So what challenges are educators facing today, and how can those challenges be addressed?
For sure, I have several thoughts on this, and I look forward to hearing from Marissa, who's in the classroom and facing it daily, and also love that Jersey accent. So I appreciate that. But for me, I think for me, one of the challenges that educators are facing today is when we look at schools, we oftentimes, and rightfully so, talk about the social and emotional development of students, but rarely, or we don't emphasize enough, the social and emotional capacity of teachers, of adults who are on campuses. We don't acknowledge or address the fact that they are bringing trauma, that they are bringing their experiences, their backgrounds, they are bringing certain levels of oppression to the workplace that is going unacknowledged, unaddressed. And we just have research that indicates that when students are not in a socially and emotionally healthy place, that teachers with their own stressors and burnouts and mental challenges that they're facing can actually perpetuate students going through their own issues around mental health. So in order for students to be in a socially and emotionally healthy place, teachers, adults on the campus have to be in a socially and emotionally healthy place. So I think that is one critical area that we have to be more intentional about addressing is taking care of our adults, ensuring that they're in a healthy place, creating a culture on the campus where not only students, but also the adults on the campus feel seen, feel valued, feel like they're known, feel like they are able to build transformational, meaningful relationships with other colleagues. So they're not coming to work every day, wondering why they're there, looking for new jobs, ready to quit. Because, of course, if there's anything we learned from the pandemic is that burnout is real. The great resignation included teachers. They're quitting all over the place. Schools are facing staffing challenges. So if we want to address those challenges, let's make sure we're taking care of the folks that are educating our kids.
Absolutely. 100% agreed. I love that you focus, it's almost like I've heard someone say, you can't make someone else happy if you're not happy yourself. And so we can't provide, a positive and healthy classroom environment if we don't have that skill set, if we aren't in that space ourselves as educators. Marissa, let's hear from you before I ask this follow-up question. So what challenges are educators facing today, and how can those challenges be addressed?
I actually went a different route, but what you said is so true. I was at a school last year, and I was at that school 1 year. That's it. I turned in my resignation letter in March. I said, I'm out. Do what you got to do. But there was actually a colleague I worked with last year. And of course, last year was the first year back in the classroom after being virtual for a year and a half. She was a new teacher, and she literally quit in October, like cried every day, was like, I can't do this, because the school at the time didn't have the resources, nor did they provide the support that teachers needed, just as what you were saying. And then for me, I know after state testing, I'm like, all right, why am I here? Now I'm just here for attendance at this point. So like I said, did what I got to do, and I got out. So I'm happy where I'm at today. But as far as the challenges, I went more so the route that you hear talked about on the news a lot, which is teacher shortages. So with teacher shortages, that means it's additional work for your teachers who are already there. Teacher, like, it's now some schools have extended time. You don't really find a lot of schools anymore with the 8:30 to 2:30 schedule. Like my schedule right now is I have to punch in by 7:45 and clock out by 4:15. It's okay with me. I don't have any kids. I don't have like a family to come home to them, but you have teachers who live far. I know somebody, one of my colleagues, she live an hour away. I said, you live where? And you come here? Say, you're tripping. So you have people who live an hour away. They have kids. They got families. You got one of my friends is a teacher. She can't pick up her daughter from school. She can't drop her off. She misses like her activities and different things. Another challenge is just thinking more so about the older crowd of teachers who've been in this for decades. Now they have to switch from traditional teaching to teaching using all of this technology. So, so now they're thinking about, okay, maybe I should just retire now because I can't get with the swing of things. And who's to say what's going to happen come down the line? I know that was one of your other questions you have for us later on. And then just the pressure from admin concerning the students' development and their academic growth. And then just like Gerard said, the burnout. I think what Gerard said was important, like checking in with your teacher's mental health, but then on the teacher's end, putting yourself on a schedule so you don't get burnout. Like I know when I come home, I don't do work. Work is for at work, not at home. So that's just me. So those are some of my challenges I identified.
I tell people all the time, like when I leave work, unless if it's like a student emergency, and it's something that my supervisor needs or the president needs right away, Outside of that, I make it a habit to shut off when I come home. I make sure not to. And then, so again, like you have two sides, right? Or I have two sides. So I have my administrative side and then I have my faculty side. And so, of course, like when I come home, that's when I do my grading, but I set aside a day to do that. And normally it's like a Saturday evening. I have West Wing on in the background or whatever it is I'm watching, and I'm grading, my work, that sort of thing. But when it comes to my administrative side, again, weekends are for me. It's for me to decompress, for me to de-stress, and really being mindful of my mental health, because as you said, burnout is so real and you can get so caught up in this whole, every student believes that they'll have access to you 24/7. And I tell my students, like, listen, I have a weekend. I'm grading papers. I will respond to you in at least 2 business days. But if you email me at 3 o'clock in the morning and then turn around and email me again at 9 in the morning, don't like, I get into work at 9. I'm not answering my email at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can wait until I get into work. Again, unless if it's kind of some massive emergency. But I really love that you talked about resources and with the teacher shortage, how that can impact those who have sort of stayed behind even. And it's just so challenging. I tip my hat to people that are in the classroom right now, because I don't know how people are continuing to stay encouraged to do that.
Can I just add something to that point too?
Please, absolutely.
When you talk about resources, it's always been weird to me that these GoFundMe campaigns for teachers, what are they called? Where teachers collect money to get supplies for their classes. Like the fact that we have so many giving people in the world who are willing to contribute money for teachers to give resources is great. But the idea that we even need that is very problematic.
Yeah.
Why should teachers be fundraising for basic needs and supplies for their class? Why should they be fundraising for books and papers and pencils and technology? Why have we had to buy our own stuff for so long? Like, that lets us know how, as a country, we value education.
Yes.
That we are expecting all of this to come off the backs of teachers and just their constant ability to hustle and innovate and be creative around their resources. So I just always have had an issue with the fact that we make teachers beg for the basic resources that they need in the classroom.
It never made any sense to me either, and still doesn't make any sense to me
at all.
It's just like, how do you not pay teachers any type of wage close to what they're worth? And then also the fact that like you have to supply your own resources. Like it just is mind-boggling to me. Pastor Joel, if you're still watching, I just had an idea. I guess after 8 o'clock is my idea time. We were at Bible study last night. I had a couple ideas that I shared with him. So I'm going to text you, Pastor Joel, because I got an idea. But it's one of those things where, like, Abbott Elementary was watching that show, and they were talking about how they send links to like the GoFundMe's or the Amazon wish list or that sort of thing. And that's how people kind of give, and that's how they get their resources for the school year. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, you shouldn't even have to do that. Like, you shouldn't be worried about that. You should be so focused on what you're teaching and the social, as you talked about, the social and emotional health of the students and yourself. Marissa, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, actually, that is one of the list of reasons why I left the school I was at last year, because they literally had nothing. Nothing. Like I went out and spent like $400 at the top of the school year. And then like the laminator never worked, copier didn't work, never had paper in the building. And because I teach a particular subject, I'm departmentalized. So I don't just teach like one set of kids for the day. So like, for example, this particular school year, I'm teaching 110 kids. So I see all of the 7th graders. Last year, I saw all of the 5th graders. It averaged about 70 kids. And you can't, and the thing about it is you get funding from the state. So what are you doing with the money that you can't provide your teachers with the resources they need for the classroom. I mean, down to bulletin board paper,
Right.
literally nothing. So you knowing me, I said, okay, guess what? My room's going to be empty all year because I'm not going to keep coming out of pocket and I'm not going to be reimbursed. And then you're not doing what you got to do on your end to make sure we have these resources. Okay, no problem. I got a trick for all y'all. Bet. Yeah. When they kept running out of paper, I said, okay, guess what, y'all? Your work gonna be online because there's no paper in the building. I'm not running to Staples. That cost. I'm not running to my mother's job, even though it's free to print there. She don't work around the corner. She worked like 40 minutes away. Gas is high. Like you're not reimbursing me for nothing.
And it's so sad that like teachers have to even go through that and try and decide like, all right, cool, my own personal budget. I know I got these bills and these things to pay, but I also know that like my classroom needs resources. And you now have to decide, okay, do I take from my budget and what I need to do for my personal life and give that over to and use that for resources, or, you know, just try and figure out another way to make it work. And I just really feel like, you know, as you all are saying, it just goes to show how little we value education in this country. It's just, it's sad at this point. It's very sad. So how do you all think, you know, as we talked about earlier, how do you all think educators can make a classroom environment more positive for students, especially with just everything going on? We're talking about K through 12. We're talking about college students. You know, how can educators make the classroom space a more positive environment for our students? Marissa, I want to start with you on that one.
So at my job now, we often use the phrase like the teacher is the thermostat in the classroom, and you set the temperature in your room. So I always come in with positive vibes, positive framing for the kids. So it could be something as little as, you know, they're getting ready to start a new lesson. You may not know it yet. Like we have a yet factor in my building. You don't know it yet. It may be challenging. Yes, but impossible. No. Difficult, maybe. Impossible, absolutely not. And we're going to get there together. I believe in you. Your teachers believe in you. Everybody in this building is rooting for you. So that's kind of how I frame it in my classroom. My classroom, they know the only you know, some kids like say dumb, but the only inappropriate question is a question not asked. So if you want to know something, you have to ask. You can't assume. If you don't know, you don't know. Ask. Okay, I won't move on. After every problem I do, I say, are there any questions? If you don't know now, this is the time to ask. Don't wait to an assessment to be like, oh, I got a question. Can't help you. Right? So use this time now. So that's just kind of how I set the tone in my room. And then we set goals for ourselves. So what is the goal you want to set for yourself for this week, or even just for the day? Even for the day. It doesn't even have to be academic. It can be behavior. Because we have like the behavior system for like dollars and Marlon. We have like a behavior system where they get like dollars, fake, school money towards whatever gifts that they're going to do, like for the school store. So your goal can be, I want to earn $150 on my paycheck this week. My goal is to earn the next field trip. My goal is to get a varsity jacket with my name on it. So they set goals for themselves. My goal is to get $100 on my exit ticket every day this week. So I have like a board in my room. It's called, it's like hashtag, I have like a social media classroom this year. So one of my boards is hashtag we are goal setters. And at the end of the week, they met their goal. They write it on a sticky and go put it up on the board in my room. So I think it all depends on the teacher. Like I said, we're the thermostat. We set the temperature in the room. We set the vibe. We set the tone for what you want for the day and even for the school year. How you come day one is what the kids are going to expect from you all year. Yep. So that's pretty much how I go about it.
I love that you have this, this yet philosophy, I'll call it. You might not know it yet. You might not understand it yet. I'm thinking back to fifth grade math for me. And my teachers started splitting us up based on sort of what we were learning and how we were grasping the material. And it was to the point where I was by myself and he was trying to teach me decimals. And to this day, I can remember clear as day him getting so frustrated with me and just walking away. I'm just going to leave until you get it. And to this day, like decimals like freak me out because I have that in the back of my mind versus, you know, had they approached with, okay, I believe in you. I know that you can get it. You know, you might not know it just yet. You might not get decimals yet, that sort of thing. And so I really just love that philosophy. And also establishing and helping students at that age learn how to set goals and to treat themselves when they've met their goals is incredibly powerful and super motivating. So I love the teachers, the thermostat in the room. Jared, let's hear from you. Same question. How can educators make the classroom a more positive environment?
Yeah, I also love this idea of thermostat. I think when I think about a positive classroom environment, there are three areas that I would touch on. Understanding, like, and emphasizing the whole child, really understanding like the science of learning and brain development, and then cultural responsiveness. So when I say whole child, again, it's creating this environment where students feel like they have a sense of belonging. Where again, you're going to hear me touch on social and emotional well-being. That students feel cared for, that they feel seen, that they feel like they have meaningful relationships with the teacher and also their peers. When I was in the classroom, I spent the whole first week of school building relationships. We didn't focus on academics. It was about getting to know each other. It was about building those relationships. It was about simply learning names. My goal at the first beginning of the school year, my goal by the end of that first week, I want to make sure I knew all of my students' names. I want to make sure that I was able to pronounce their name correctly. Because something we've done is just dismiss whole cultures, whole family histories, because as teachers, we refuse to take the time to learn and respect where students are coming from. So having that whole child mentality, I think, is very important. And again, just because I'm in a doctoral program right now and I'm doing a bunch of research that is like, has me all over the place. Let's look at the research. When students feel safe, psychologically safe, they're more willing to take academic risk in the classroom. So if you have issues with your students not raising their hands or not wanting to answer questions, you might want to ask yourself as a teacher, am I creating a psychologically safe environment? Because in a psychologically safe environment, I'm willing to take those academic risks because if I'm wrong, I know I'm not going to get ridiculed for my wrong answer. I'm going to get supported by not only my teacher, but my peers. And that growth mindset that Marissa talked about is what that speaks to. I might not have it yet, but in a psychologically safe environment, I know I have I have peers and a teacher who are going to push me to get to that point. So whole child emphasis is critical. Like just having a basic understanding of brain development.
Yeah.
You're teaching children. Like we have to understand that our brains aren't fully developed until we're maybe 23 for women, 25 for men, maybe even 35, 45. For men, they might go on for a long time when it comes to their brain development. So understanding, understanding that children, because of their brain developing, are literally biologically wired to make silly decisions. So don't get mad at kids for being kids. Again, you are the teacher. You have been trained to educate them. So we also have to be trained in how to address just their development biologically, cognitively, and then cultural responsiveness, knowing how to respond to where your kids come from. And when I say cultural responsiveness, I don't mean doing a bunch of rap songs to allow your black kids to relate to what's happening in the classroom. That's not necessarily cultural responsiveness. Cultural responsiveness is ensuring that you are bringing relevant content that students can connect to. and also understand that students bring their own experience and their own expertise to the classroom that should actually help integrate the classroom and help everybody's understanding. So when I'm culturally responsive, I bring, again, content that is going to be relevant, that allows you connect your prior experiences to what I'm trying to get you to learn. So we kind of become somewhat oppressors when we take cultural responsiveness and think that, again, just because I have a Black kids, and if I do some hip hop songs and dance, that I'm gonna get you to learn. It might be exciting, but are you actually having the rigor that's allowing them to connect to the content?
Oh, okay. So much that I just want to dissect right there. So before I get to dissecting, we're gonna quick check in. Everyone, thank you if you are just tuning in. I'm Dr. Aljoe, and tonight we are talking about Dig Deep Conversations with Christian Leaders. The topic is Christian educators. Now, the question on the floor is, how can educators make their classrooms a more positive environment? So we heard about understanding the whole child, the science of learning, cultural responsiveness, and making sure that the classroom is a psychologically safe environment. When I think about, as you were talking about cultural responsiveness, I started thinking about, we had a guest speaker come to my institution recently, and he talked about how he created this debate team from children that went to schools down in Atlanta, I believe it was, and they went to Harvard, and they ended up beating all these other elite schools and for like 5 years in a row, something amazing and spectacular. And he said, he didn't start off, hey, do you guys want to come and join the debate team, right? He started off by saying, okay, who's the better rapper, Drake or Kanye, right? And so the students are debating, who's the better basketball player, LeBron or Kobe? Easy answer is Kobe, right? So they're debating. No, I don't like
It's not to be a debate right now.
We're about to have a debate now.
But so when you talk about cultural responsiveness, I absolutely am so happy that you brought up the fact that it is more than just knowing the latest slang and doing the latest TikTok challenge and all of these things that could actually be seen as still being oppressive, right? Still putting a mask on the fact that you are not culturally aware, right? You might be tapped into the culture, but you're not necessarily culturally aware to speak to sort of the root of a child. And when we come to even just so much as names, a lot of times when I agree with you 100%. You said in the first week, you're just relationship building. First and second class, we are going around and we're just doing icebreaker questions, getting to know them. I always ask students, how can you pronounce your name for me? Is there a nickname you want me to call you? And what are your pronouns? And we're going to jump to that question next. But really making sure, and I tell my students, listen, if I'm mispronouncing your name, do not be afraid to correct me. I once had an instructor tell a student that how her name was pronounced was wrong. And I said, that's her name. That is her name. You can't tell me my name is not pronounced Juria. That's my name. That's how it is pronounced. So I think all of these are just so incredibly important when it comes to setting this positive environment in the classroom, because children and even college age students, they cannot learn. And it's more challenging for them to learn. It's more challenging for them to be engaged in their learning if they do not feel that connection, especially with their instructor. If my instructor doesn't seem to care about me, doesn't seem to connect with me or even want to connect with me or understand me, it's going to be more challenging for me to want to learn from them. So I'm so happy that you all brought that up. Even Marissa, you talking about, the teacher is a thermostat. Like when I walk in the room, the energy that I'm bringing in the room, what I'm bringing into the room, that's sort of what the students, for the most part, give back. So I love that. Anything to add? Any final thoughts on that question before we shift gears here?
I think one thing that we have to be considerate of, again, is most educators are teaching in communities that they are not from, which is fine, which is perfectly fine. And I won't say most. I don't know what some educators are teaching in the communities that they live in and are from. But when you are teaching in the community, in a community that you are not from, don't come in there. This is just a pro tip. Don't go in somebody else's community telling them what they should and should not value. Oftentimes we commit what I call educational colonialism. And we have this savior complex when we go into certain communities thinking that we know better than the folks who live in that community. No, again, as an educator, as a teacher, it is your responsibility to learn just as much as it is your responsibility to teach. So learn from your students, learn from their families, like walk around the community that you teach in, drive around the community that you teach in, and build that understanding and context. So again, you know what students are bringing to that space. And we also have to come in with an asset-based mindset and not a deficit-based mindset. Think about what your students are bringing to the classroom. Think about what your families are bringing to the educational space, and don't always focus on what their gaps are. Help to fill those gaps, but also highlight the glows and the contributions that they make to that space and leverage that.
Love that. Coming with a mindset of sort of assets and not deficits. Marissa, any final thoughts from you on that one?
No, I agree actually with everything he said. You know, prior to the pandemic, more so on the lower elementary side, not so much middle and high school where I am, we used to do home visits over the summer for all new incoming students. And it wasn't to go do an assessment or to do anything. It was literally to go get to know the kid, get to know their families, build that relationship early, because now they're going to be the new kid on the block coming into this building with all these returners. So I think that was very important. And then, you know, when they come, it's like, oh, I remember I did your home visit. I remember you did X, Y, Z. You used to go dance here. You used to do, and you know, and something you constantly say, Gerard, as you speaking, like to make the kids feel known. It's funny you said that, because that's actually a part of my school's mission statement. And we quoted the mission or the vision statement, and we quoted not verbatim, but just that particular line in every meeting we have, whether it's school-wide, department, or grade level meeting. And that line is that it's our responsibility to make sure every kid feels known, valued, and celebrated.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. Even something as the kids' birthdays. Like what we do, if we know it's a kid's birthday and on our grade level team, because we have a group chat and group meet, you know, for messages throughout the day. So first thing this morning, it was a kid's birthday. It was like, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday today. So when you see him in the building, you see him outside, oh, happy birthday. How old you turn? You know, like, you know, we know it's your birthday. We about to celebrate you. So just those little things, it makes a difference in how the kid feels as they going throughout the day, and even the school year. Like I made a bet. I have an accelerated class this year, and they scored 100% as a class on this quiz we did last week, 3 questions. I said, so guess what? Y'all just set the bar for yourself for the school year. So when they have an assessment in October, their first quarterly assessment, I said, listen, so y'all set the goal. What's the goal you guys want to set for yourself? They're like, oh, 85, 80, 75. Da, da, da. I said, all right. So they set it for 85. I said, that's high, but okay. I ain't gonna knock it. I said, but here's the deal. Y'all get 85% mastery or higher, I have to give y'all a pizza party. So they went, wow, yeah, we about to get 100% again. I said, okay. I got my money ready for when you get your 85%. But it's little things like that, like breakfast in the morning, visiting the kids, like even in the wintertime, like if we have bad snowstorms, I'll take a kid home. Oh, I ain't gonna let you walk in 2 feet of snow. You hop in the back seat. You only live around the corner. So I think that's very, very important. Making sure every kid, we have like 460 something kids in my building right now, but we make sure every kid feels known, honored and celebrated, and you'll really see the difference in like a kid's mannerism just by having a simple conversation with them.
You absolutely do. It's my favorite to be able to see a child and you can see how you're pouring into them and you're encouraging them and just seeing their face light up when, that light bulb goes off and they get it and they understand it. And even seeing them whenever they don't get it, they're not beating themselves up, they're not shutting down, they're not becoming reclusive. So really being able to tap into and help cultivate that self-esteem for a young person is, again, it's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do. Oh my God. I told y'all this is going to be a great conversation. We got to 2 questions that I had, which is good because this is some good stuff. Marissa, you talked a little bit about involving the parents. So the next question that I want to ask you all is, how can parents work as partners with educators regarding the education of their children? So Marissa, let's start with you with that question. How can parents work as partners with educators regarding the education of their children?
Oh, parents in 2022.
Hashtag
I'll
parenting
start
2022.
there. Parenting 2022. Considering the generation we have, considering the day and age we are living in, I would say one way parents can partner with teachers and help with their education is, one, spend time with them. And I say that because teachers are with the kids more than they are during the school year, depending on the school schedule, 8 to 10 hours, whatever it may be, especially if they have aftercare or something. And a lot of times, at least I know with my middle school kids, and I'll ask them, like, what you doing after school, whatever, making conversation. Oh, I'm going home to play my game. So nowadays you have a lot of kids just being thrown on some type of technology device. It's an iPad, it's a phone, some type, I don't know what these new games are, PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, whatever's out now, I don't know. Something electronic, because that's all they talk about in school. I'm like, huh?
Right.
But have a conversation with your kids, and I honestly feel like it'll make such a big difference. I remember myself, just my whole K through 12, oh, my water fell, my whole K through 12 years, like, my parent was present. I wasn't like thrown in front of a television. It was like, how was school? What did you learn today? Do you need help? Let's sit down, do homework together. I think it's the little things, parents aren't checking homework anymore. And I'm gonna say this, people don't live near me, so they don't like it. Oh well. But today you have a lot of parents being their child's friend and not their child's parent.
That part.
And it shows, and it makes a difference. I called home about a situation last week, spoke to the parent, and because the kid had after school reflection because of what they did, and the parent sis was asleep. That's number one, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And she just said, okay. I said, okay, have a good day. And she hung up. So it's like no interaction, no engagement, no concern. And it shows. So again, I think about when we were in school, the parents were just different. Our parents were also older. They weren't like our siblings' age. Call spade, it is what it is. Right. They were involved. They interacted with this. They were there. They were present. Activities happened. They were there. So I think for me, it's just spending time with your kids. And if you don't know something, homework, you have a concern, ask. Please don't assume. Ask. You won't know unless you ask. And I can't stress that enough. I tell my parents all the time, send me an email. Some of them have my number. I have a work phone. I had to learn the hard way, yo. I got me a work phone this year because this Google Voice and my personal phone. Yeah. So I got paying a little additional $68, $40, whatever it is, but it's worth it, because that phone could stay in the work in the trunk. But yes, it doesn't come inside. I told you I do work at work, not
Love it.
It really, I think it's just the little things, how they can, and then be on our side. Like, I know it's one thing to advocate for your kid, but if we're trying to help you, like give you, like provide you with different resources and tell you how you can support your kid at home, like don't chew our heads off. We're just trying to help you. We want to see, let me speak for me. I want to see all my kids succeed.
Right.
I don't care, because guess what? Later on down the road, you're going to need us before you need somebody else, especially when it comes to education. One of my kids who's in high school now, I told her in 3rd and 5th grade, she texted me one day last year, Miss Phelps, I'm trying to apply to this school. Can you write me a recommendation? Sure. So it's little things you got to think about later on down the road, before you try to go hard in the paint with the teachers.
Right.
So again, don't assume, ask, support your kid at home. If you aren't sure, send an email, send a text, make a phone call, and just support your kids at home. Don't just throw them in front of a computer.
Agreed, 100%. Jared, same question for you. How can parents work as partners with teachers regarding the education of their children?
Yeah, for sure. I think first of all, like we need more educators like Marissa, who are actually going to care enough about their students to call home, to make that connection. I'm gonna bring a slightly different perspective to this. You mentioned Abbott Elementary earlier. That's one of my favorite shows. And I remember there was an episode that the teacher was trying to get in contact with a parent and couldn't get in touch with that parent, and she was getting frustrated and making all these assumptions about the parent and not making time for the child. And to make a long story short, and spoiler alert to those who haven't seen it, if you haven't seen Abbott, then I don't know where you are anyway. I don't know what you're doing with your life. But anyway, it turned out like
tonight. Woo woo. Okay, sorry.
Exactly. But it turned out the parent was like a nurse and had to work overtime, was getting called into work. So she was making all these assumptions, but didn't really understand where the parent was coming from. So again, everybody is not like Marissa. And I think here in Houston, what I have seen is that a lot of kids, especially in Houston ISD, which is like the 4th or 5th largest district in the nation, a lot of kids go to the school that their parents went to, that the grandparents went to. And mom didn't have a good experience at school. So just coming up to the school might bring up certain traumas that she experienced with that school. Like the teacher that her child has might be the same teacher that told her she wasn't going to get out the hood, or that she wasn't going to graduate, or that she wasn't going to be anything. So as a parent, I don't even really want to engage with you because of the experience that I had with you. So that's one area. 2, if we want to engage our parents, schools have to make the environment welcoming to parents. As somebody who was a district leader, there were certain campuses I walked on and didn't get a hello, didn't ask, how are you? What can we do for you? I would be at the front desk waiting for somebody to serve me, and they would just be talking or on the computer or on the phone, to the point where I would just walk away, which is number one, a safety risk, but make sure the school is a welcoming environment that people want to come to. And then number 3, working with parents around their schedules. I believe that most parents, we have exceptions for sure, but I believe that most parents are doing the best that they can. We all know that there is no handbook for parenting. The fact that some of us turned out somewhat normal is by the grace of God, somewhat because again, our parents didn't know what they were doing always, but they tried their best. And I think for the most part, again, there are some exceptions, but for the most part, parents are trying their best. But some of the stuff that we ask for, it might not be in line with folks' schedules. So how can we provide multiple opportunities? How can we ensure that we're meeting with the parents and trying to figure out what works best for them and what they can do? If they can't raise $500,000 like schools in the suburbs or schools with wealthier families, what can they add to the school? What, again, assets or contributions can they bring? So I think that's my spin. As educators, as schools, we have to work with parents. I also agree with Marissa, that as a parent, as someone who has children, I have had to learn that I just can't take my child's word for everything. I need to be able to get both sides. I need to be able to understand the teacher side as well, because there have been times where my kids will share something and I'm ready to pop off on the teacher, only to find out they didn't give me all the information. My kid didn't give me all the information. So I get that as well. Parents, we have to understand that how our kids act at home ain't always how they act at school. So let's make sure we're getting both sides of the story before we come to our conclusion.
I think there's a meme that I saw where it was being passed around, I think, by some teachers, especially in like the K through 12, where it was like, you know, y'all kids be at school cussing hard, like hard.
Yeah.
Hard. It might not
The church kids too. The church kids too.
church kids, those be the one like hard. Like you ain't even making sense right now. Like you just cussing just to cuss.
Like you're not even using the word correctly. You just saying it because you heard somebody else say it.
Lord, I can't. Oh God. So we've got about maybe 7 minutes left. So I'm gonna try and get to these last two questions. I really want to know, how do you navigate? So as a Christian educator, how do you navigate the push to talk about the LGBTQIA community, transgender, gender identity, that type of conversation, especially at the K through 12 level, where some parents and some individuals might not feel that it's appropriate to even have those conversations about gender identity. How do you identify, that sort of thing at certain ages? So I'm really curious to hear, how do you all navigate that? Jared, I actually want to start with you first on this question. So how do you navigate the push to teach gender identity and sexuality to younger students?
I'm open. I'm intellectually curious. I want to hear what's on folks' minds. Like to me, there are times when Christians can just be super sensitive and get offended at stuff that I don't think God even gets offended by. There is nothing wrong with trying to understand where a person is coming from. Why do they identify the way that they do? Again, what are the experiences that may have led to that? If we lead with listening instead of always wanting to talk and shout at the other side, we might learn something, because we oftentimes take on opinions that we aren't even educated enough in. So I think it's important to, again, biblically, a soft answer turns away wrath. The Bible talks about listening before you speak. The Bible talks about loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second command is to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think oftentimes, although we may not be committing directly the violence that is happening to these communities, we are perpetuating the violence by not advocating for the humanity of people, understanding that folks are human first. My grandfather, before he passed, would always say, that person has a soul. So how are we speaking to the soul of a person and not the politics of a person? Because we spend too much time on the politics of people and not the soul of people. And if we build those relationships, if we ask those questions, if we remain curious, then I think we can get further along. You both mentioned something that I think is critical. Marissa, you talked about ensuring that every student feels seen, known, and celebrated, feels valued. And then Dr. Aljoe, you mentioned that you ask for your students' pronouns. That is the state of our culture. We may not be comfortable with it, but it is an opportunity for us as believers to stretch, to really dig deeper, to the point of this podcast, to dig deeper into our own faith, to ask those critical questions. This stuff doesn't push me to want to fight against others. It pushes me to want to learn more, to actually dig deeper into the Bible and try to extract what God is actually telling us to do. So in my opinion, I have no issue navigating these environments because I remain curious. And when you remain curious, people are open to what you have to share. And if
Right.
you can share it in a way that is not only eloquent, but is laced in love, they're more willing to hear you. I have found that you can say the right thing, but saying the wrong way, and people are going to be repelled by it. But if you can say the right thing and also articulate it in the right way, people are more open to hearing from you and what you have to share.
Yeah, so I like when you said lead with listening, and even I'm going to even add in there love with listening. Again,
Yeah.
like it is something that I'm learning, and I make mistakes. I've misgendered individuals before, not purposefully, but it's sort of it's something I have to be more mindful of, and it's something that I absolutely don't feel uncomfortable doing. Again, I'm curious, and as you said, curious to know kind of how did a person get to this point or get to this decision that was made. And then two, it helps me to learn how to pray for people, to
Yeah.
pray about healings for past traumas that have potentially happened, and being able to be a better Christian, remembering that God has called me to love. At the end of the day, it's to love. I don't have to necessarily, my requirement to love you is not stipulated on you doing everything that I like and you doing everything that the word of God says. It is to love you, period. End of the commandment, right? Marissa, let's hear
Facts.
from you. What are your thoughts on how Christian educators can navigate the push to teach gender identity and sexuality to young children?
From the teaching component, that actually isn't that topic, the gender sexuality, is something that hasn't come across my desk yet.
Yes.
Put that
Hello,
out there.
hello.
But I think just to the point that what both of y'all said is to still love the kids. Um, Definitely listening. And I was actually reading something earlier today online. It was a Christian educator, and it was like a podcast, and they had the script written out, and it just pretty much talking about the same thing we're discussing here. If a kid comes to you, what's your approach? And what the person was saying was, you know you would follow up with questions, like, because those questions can lead to something deeper as to why they're going that route, whether it's something at home, did something happen to them, is it out of curiosity, um because you never know what's going on in the home. I actually have a kid who has parents of the same gender, they're married. So it's just different situations, but as far as the push to teaching it, um I know there's like a whole, the Bible and the spiritual component, but at the end of the day, I'm realistic. If that's something that has to be taught, it has to be taught. We have our own beliefs, of course, as Christians, but if it is put into the curriculum, you want to keep your job, but that doesn't deter you from what you believe.
Right,
So, because you can't, in the public school system, you can't preach Jesus. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, 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 right.
So it's like a sticky situation. So again, love the child, love the whole child. You
Mhm.
love them. You may not love their action, or you may not love or agree with their decision, but still love the whole child.
Mhm. And I think too, it's about educating ourselves as educators, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not that child's responsibility to teach me what I need to know, and how I need to move and operate and how I can support them, right? As an educator, it is my job, it is my responsibility, and also at times my privilege to understand what resources are out there to help support this student. And as you said, Marissa, I have my beliefs. I know, what I believe in. I know that I believe in the Bible. But that does not mean, and I personally don't ever feel comfortable going around wagging my finger at people like, you're not living according to the word of God, so I can't love you, and blah, blah. Like that just is just never sat right with me. And if that's you, y'all keep praying for me. If that means you're not saved, y'all keep praying for me. But yeah, Jared, any final thoughts with that one for you?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned, I would be more inclined to question their salvation if they are questioning yours, because I think just biblically, Jesus sets the precedent of how we are to interact with folks.
Yeah.
Jesus was much harsher toward the proclaimed religious folks than he was to those that were called sinners. He was much more willing to engage. He was much more willing to, and in fact, I always say that my teaching philosophy comes from Jesus and Socrates, who taught through questions, who felt that the best way to get folks to really reflect on their experiences and to discover their own answer was to ask questions. So I used Jesus as my template for how I engage in education. And if that's not biblical or salvation, our definition of salvation, I might have to quibble with some folks on what the Bible is actually saying.
Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Oh, definitely. And I think, as we're wrapping up, sorry, Siri is going off. As we're wrapping up, I think it's also important to remember and distinguish between, someone who is not professing salvation versus someone who is professing salvation. Someone who's not professing salvation, I'm not going to hold them to the same standards that I would myself, right? I'm professing myself to be a Christian. There are certain things, certain expectations God has for me as a believer, as a Christian, as a practicing Christian, I'll say, versus, those who are not professing salvation. So this particular question, this particular conversation, I think, is so important to have. And yes, I agree. You have to express your whatever it is, expressing your opinion in an equal manner. So again, teaching about, normally we do like a different cultural awareness. And so I teach about different religions. I teach about social awareness, cultural awareness. And I have to have an awareness of different customs, different cultural, religious customs of all types of religions. And so, not necessarily that I'm pushing other religions, but these are things that I have to teach my students.
Exactly.
So, I can't go into the classroom and throw oil on people's heads and lay everybody out and throw sheets over. Like, I can't run revival in my classroom. I can't run revival in my classroom, but there are ways and behaviors that I can exhibit that would hopefully lead people to Christ in that manner. So as we end, I want to have final thoughts from you all about where you would like to see education, shift to in the next 10 to 15 years. So if 10 to 15 years from now we come on and we have a reunion show, where would you like to see education? I'm going to start with Marissa, and then we'll end with Jared.
I don't know, because the way this world is going, you got cars driving with no gas, like you got to pull over and charge it. I can only imagine what's going to happen with education. For me personally, I would like to see some of the traditional ways come back. For example, I'll give an example. Where I teach, the network I'm a part of, they don't use textbooks. So something as simple as that, like they hire people to write the curriculum, or they pull from different sources online and create the lesson, right?
Yeah.
But kids don't have anything tangible to go home and flip through. I just feel like some of the things we used to use was so helpful, so beneficial. If you really think about it, they took penmanship out the classroom. How are kids going to learn how to sign their names? They don't know cursive. It's the little things that I thought were very important. I would like to see some of that come back. And I just think about, if we're thinking about this technology age, I don't know. I have mixed opinions about virtual in the classroom. If we're just talking about me, Marissa, we could do virtual all day. I'm with it. But when you're thinking about all kids, especially my exceptional learners, those are your students. We call them exceptional learners, the ones who get accommodations and modifications. The fact that they were able to advocate for themselves in the pandemic and was like, I like this. I have no distractions. And they performed well. I had one class, and they performed exceptionally well. They were actually my highest class that year, my exceptional learners. So providing like a space for them, whether it's like a hybrid, they could do half in the building, half at home. Just thinking about all kids moving forward. Because I teach all kids. I teach accelerated, I teach gen ed, I teach exceptional learners. So thinking about all kids, bringing back some of our traditional, this new learning and new teaching is cute, but it's cute, it is what it's cute, and I'm gonna just leave it at that. But sometimes don't fix what's not broke. Some of those old ways, like memorization, writing things over and over and over again, is how some of us got to where we are today. So those are just a few of the things that I would like to see more so of the traditional route come back.
I can vividly remember like my reading textbooks from like 5th and 6th grade, my math textbooks, it was so cool to me to start to learn how to write in cursive. Like you started off learning how to write slant in like 2nd or 3rd grade. Then like moving into 4th, you start learning to write in cursive. And like, I couldn't wait for it. Could not wait. 6th grade, we had a little bus patrol. And that was like a rite of passage. Like 5th graders getting ready to become 6th graders. You got the bus patrol. Like, can't nobody tell you nothing now. So yeah, I agree. I think there's certain things from when I was growing up that I would love to see and have, my children experience whenever they get here. My children experience for sure.
Soon and very soon.
Okay. All right. Jared.
Oh wow. Yeah. I think Marissa brought up like just cars now are self-driving, and we see Teslas and all the technologies that cars have. We see where cell phones are compared to where they were 25 years ago. We see where mail is. I can order something on Amazon and have it within 2 hours. That didn't happen 25 years ago. But for some reason, when you walk into a classroom, for the most part, it looks like it did 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Yeah. And I sometimes wonder why that is. I think education hasn't had the same level of like research and development that other industries have had. So my vision, my hope for education in the next 25 years is to see just pedagogy, learning that is, number one, relevant. I think that's something that should never be taken away. Standard, I see you, Cooper Thompson, take away that standardized testing.
I agree. Get rid of all classes. Get rid of them. We don't need them. Let's don't determine what I can do.
And I think a way to address that is by focusing on more project-based learning. I think you can build mastery, you can build proficiency through project-based learning. Allowing kids to, for example, I work with some colleagues who have created a curriculum where their learning happens in real life. So when I say in real life, students from like 3rd through 8th grade. If they're learning math and angles, they are working with a local construction company that is building homes or building facilities in their community, and they're learning the process, and they're also consulting those folks. So it's project-based learning, it's identity affirming. It's a way to ensure that students don't have to wait till they're grown to have an impact on society. They can have an impact now. So if there's anything that I hope to see in the next 25 years is making the content relevant, real world.
Yes.
You all clearly had a better educational experience than me because I hated math. I hated the way they taught it. And I think that is why I don't like math to this day. But here's what I found out. I'm a huge basketball fan.
Right.
Like which is why I think LeBron is better, because I can back it up with the data.
All right.
But I look at general managers, and general managers now basketball teams use a lot of math to construct their teams. If I was taught like that when I was a kid, I would probably love math. I might be the general manager of the Houston Rockets, who knows? And so we have to make sure that we are, again, making the content relevant to students, where they're allowed to bring their interest, their passion to the content that you're trying to get them to grasp. So project-based learning, identity affirming schools is what I hope to see in the next 25 years.
I'm not going to go off on this tangent because I could talk about this for a whole nother hour.
Your sister in the background making comments.
Your sister said the math is not mathin'.
Okay? Look, he didn't carry the 1 over when he was doing the statistics. So you got to carry the 1 and add 2.
I love it.
I teach a first-year seminar course and a business communications course, among other things that I've taught in the past. And I tell my students all the time, I don't believe in exams. I understand the theory behind them and the research behind them. I do not believe that those are the only ways to assess a student's learning. And so I am very big on project-based learning in the classroom. And even universal design for learning is a theory about teaching, and it specifically looks at teaching to different types of students, right? Marissa mentioned exceptional students with different learning challenges. And so being able to say to a student, okay, your project is to reflect on what you've learned in this class. Use, what you can post a video, you can create a blog, you can do a social media post, you can create a website. If you have an idea, you tell me and I'll tell you if it's appropriate, as long as you are answering these questions. And so not restricting students to, you got to take this exam, you got to take this quiz, you got to do this PowerPoint presentation. So service-based learning, project-based learning, I'm big on service-based learning when it comes to, higher education, learning, living communities. This stuff is like something that I'm very, very passionate about. And so for me, when it comes to education, I would love to see us really embracing that at the K through 12 level. And really, I would love to see the pendulum swinging back to colleges, where it comes about pursuing knowledge. And it's not just, I'm going to college so I can get a degree, so I can get a job, so I can get money. Like that's what these students are coming to college for. And I understand that. But really, when higher education started, it was for the sake of knowledge, for learning. And so I think that's missing the piece of, I'm able to now learn and expand my thinking as an individual, and being able to bring that back to my community, to build up my community. That is missing in a lot of college settings. And I won't go off on that. I want y'all to know, because I peeped it and I was waiting for it, because this is how you know that someone's in an EDD program, is when they use the word pedagogy. That's how you know, people, that someone is in an EDD program.
You see, I didn't use it. Guess who's not in the doctorate program?
Not yet, Marissa. Not yet. I'm gonna pray about it. I'm gonna
pray
Jesus
hard,
talking.
long and hard.
No, it's a running joke from my cohort because that as soon as we learned it, we was using pedagogy this and pedagogy that and pedagogical this and blah blah blah. So no, this you all has been so wonderful. Thank you all so much for saying yes. I literally could talk about this for a whole nother hour, but I told y'all my bedtime is coming up close. So I will not keep us any longer. Really quick, one quick takeaway that you want from folks that have listened to, watched with us tonight, or will listen to the podcast. One quick takeaway. And then actually, Jared, if you wouldn't mind praying us out, praying specifically for educators. And then I will let you all go. So one quick takeaway. We'll start with Marissa. We'll end with Jared. And Jared, you can end us in prayer.
I feel like I'm doing a lesson plan. What's your key takeaway for the lesson?
Assessment.
Right? Because I got to have 2 for every lesson. Let me think. Key takeaway. I don't know. There's a couple of takeaways we can have for tonight. I would just say pursue your education, and for the right reasons, just off the strip of what you just said. Even in lower school, like lower middle, secondary, lower, whatever it's called, I don't know. Because some kids is like, oh, I gotta because I have to, that's what my mother said, I gotta get out the house, go to school. But everything starts from like, this is your baseline, like from the bottom up. Even if you want to be a basketball player, you want to be a chef, you want to be a cop, you want to be a firefighter, you want to be a clerk, you got to go to school. So pursue your education and be passionate about whatever you want to do while you're in school.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Jared, one with you.
A few things as well. Number one, we need more platforms like this where Black Christian educators are having deep, nuanced conversations. So shout out to you, Dr. Aljoe, for what you're doing. This is the space that is necessary. Again, where Black folks are talking education about the communities that we serve and the children that we love. Again, where Christian educators are talking. Number two, Marissa, if you ever want to move down to Houston, you need a teaching job down here, let me know. We need that type of energy.
Look, Marissa, come down to Texas with me, okay?
To visit? Because y'all have lizards that run back and forth on people's property, and I ain't with it. Like
lizards?
What the little scale back animals?
All the geckos.
So yeah, we might. Y'all have blizzards, and I think you will enjoy the weather much more down here.
Let me tell you something. You know what a blizzard gets me? A day off. I'm with it. Okay,
but also if we get down to 30 degrees, if we get down to 30 degrees, we'll get a day off too. Like
that's true.
No snow. It's just cold.
That's true. That's very accurate. Very.
I think about it because I know your taxes are a lot cheaper than we at because I feel like we're paying taxes for the whole country.
Whole country. We got the whole country on our back up here. Like, honestly and truly. No, Jared, please. Yes.
I love the energy you both brought. This was so fun. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, keep doing, both of y'all keep doing what you're doing. Yeah, we just need to be able to dig deep into these conversations a lot more often. I think the other takeaway is there are folks out there who care about this work, and we need to keep pushing it. So with that being said, as we bow our heads, God our Father, we thank you for this day, a day that you have made, a day with us uniquely in mind, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. We thank you for your grace, for your mercy, for your favor. We thank you, God, for how you continue to lead us, guide us, comfort us. We thank you right now, God, for what you're getting ready to do in our lives. It's already done, God, but we thank you for the doors that you are opening. And right now, as we prepare to end this session, we're praying for educators all across the country, God. We ask that you would give them the mindset, that you would give them the passion, that you would give them the heart to do their work with diligence, to do their work with dedication, God. Open up their minds, God, to hear from you. Open up their hearts, God, to show empathy, God, to show compassion. Open up their ears, Lord, to hear what you are saying to them, and God, and open up doors that would allow them to impact communities all across this country and all across this world, God. You have called educators for a specific purpose, for a specific reason. You have called us to come into communities and ensure that communities, especially those that have been historically marginalized, historically oppressed, historically underserved, to have pathways where they can be self-sustaining, where they can be critical thinkers, where they can reimagine what life looks like for them. So we thank you right now for each and every educator. We ask that you would continue to touch them and their families, their loved ones, their friends, and we'll continue to give you all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. I'm going to send y'all to the back. Y'all can hang out if you have the time. Thank you so much for coming. All right, friends, I am going to do some quick announcements. Upcoming next week, Monday, I have the second portion of this conversation, Dig Deep, Conversations with Christian Leaders, with Christian Educators. Man, if the conversation is like this on next Monday, I might just have to do a third series. I don't know. Y'all let me know. Y'all tell me. But next Monday, September 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Facebook Live and also on YouTube, Dig Deep, Conversations with Christian Leaders, looking at and talking to Christian educators. And then don't forget to sign up for Building an Effective Ministry. That is our Dig Deep workshop for the month of October. It's October 10th, 17th, and 24th. These sessions will be available via Zoom and in person. It's only $25 for all 3 sessions. You need to be a part of this if you are over a department, if it is your pastor, your first lady, if you're a district missionary, you need to be a part of it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you if you're catching the live on the replay. Make sure you use the hashtag replay. And if you are listening to the podcast, have a great evening, you all, and I will see you on Monday.